a great panelist like here. I am very happy to have here my friend Alex, who's a member of the European Parliament from Malta. Hi, Alex. I'm very happy also to have Werner Stengg, who is actually the expert on AI in the cabinet of EVP Margrethe Vestager. Hi, Werner, how are you?
Hello, fine, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody.
And then we have here also, we always like to bring together both the political side, the policy side, and then the industry and the association. So I'm here with Angeliki. Hi, Angeliki from Huawei.
Hi, Alessandro. Nice to see you all.
And with Kalina from MedTech Europe. Hi, Kalina.
Hello, Alessandro.
So fantastic. So let's actually kick it off. It's going to be a very informal, very out of the box initiative. And so mainly the idea is for everyone that is following us on either YouTube or on Zoom, feel free to ask questions. There is a Q&A box at the bottom, and we will try to float them around. And on the topic itself, so the idea is to talk about AI and how AI and data science can help during coronavirus time. There are a variety of applications that can be used on artificial intelligence, robotics, medical technologies to be able to help us in these times of crisis. So I would like to start with Alex. Alex, please, what is, according to you, the role that AI can play, and how can politics help to make sure that AI has all the capabilities and all the opportunities to help in this sense?
So first of all, I would like to thank Alessandro and the rest of the EU40 team for giving us another opportunity during these challenging times to discuss this important topic, artificial intelligence, data science, vis-a-vis also the coronavirus pandemic. First of all, the coronavirus pandemic poses a global public health challenge, which basically is unprecedented and has unprecedented proportions that need, first of all, global coordinated actions amongst countries, stakeholders, and also institutions. The shutdown of many EU countries due to COVID-19 demonstrates, first of all, the importance of, first of all, having a sophisticated digital infrastructures that keeps our countries, our economies, and even our people going at least at a very basic level. During these difficult past weeks, digital services have played a very important role for many people to continue working from home and also to support private life, assisting in providing people with basic needs like food and supplies, entertainment, and also to meet remotely. The EU managed also to continue to govern and take decisions by digital teleworking and remote meetings and voting, although sometimes it was also a bit complicated. But without the existing digital solutions, the crisis would have been and would have had a much worse impact. The COVID-19 pandemic has also shown the resilience of our e-commerce sector and its potential as a driver for relaunching the European economy in the post-crisis world. E-commerce will definitely be an important part of the solution. But unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic has also demonstrated how vulnerable EU consumers and users are, first of all, to misleading trading practices of selling illegal products online, fake products online, and also products and services which are not compliant with the EU acquis. The EU acquis on safety rules, and also we saw a lot of cases and instances of unjustified and abusive price increases or other unfair conditions for consumers. The Digital Services Act will be the legal framework in the EU for all digital developments over the next decade. That is why it is of paramount importance to understand the upcoming new developments and challenges in the digital services and also artificial intelligence and data science. In order to tackle this global challenge, countries around the world need to, first of all, be engaged in a coordinated way and take an evidence-based responses grounded on the principle of solidarity, support, and also respect of human rights. It is true that the use of artificial intelligence and data science has helped to fight against the pandemic through its integration in the medical sector. However, some of the actions taken by governments and businesses during these exceptional circumstances today can have significant repercussions on the freedom of expression, privacy, and human rights, both today but also tomorrow. There are already some very worrying examples of the launch of legal initiatives to tackle misinformation, for example, sometimes with disproportionate reactions from our governments. Similarly, we are witnessing a surge in emergency-related policy initiatives, some of them also risking the abuse of sensitive personal data in an attempt to safeguard public health. Therefore, it is essential that the increased use of artificial intelligence systems must be ensured, first of all, to be trustworthy, but also, and this is a fundamentally important point, that it must be aligned with EU ethical principles. This means that measures cannot lead to disproportionate and unnecessary actions. It is also vital that measures are not extended once we are no longer in a state of emergency. Otherwise, these actions taken under exceptional circumstances can have significant repercussions on human rights.
Absolutely.
We understand that many platforms have increased their reliance on automated content moderation during the pandemic, while simultaneously also removing misinformation and apparently inaccurate information about COVID-19 at an unprecedented rate. But the importance of accurate information during the pandemic is clear. But while taking public health measures to tackle COVID-19, we should ensure that, first of all, we strictly uphold fundamental rights and defend freedom of information and freedom of expression. Decision-making about user-generated content requires a careful and often complicated balance of rights. Ultimately, errors resulting from wrongful assessments of these moderation practices are inevitable. They must also provide enough safeguards for users. These new measures have also limited companies' abilities to provide users with the right, for example, to appeal in a case of inaccurate assessment of this online content. The establishment of clear and easily accessible appeal mechanisms and clear and harmonized notice and action mechanisms are the main guarantee of procedural fairness. Transparency is key. Transparency is key to continue to preserve the public trust in the systems, and also technical measures to manage coronavirus must be therefore transparent and must always, and I must stress on this point, they must always remain under public control and not private control. Companies should not exploit this crisis for their own benefit. Platforms need, first of all, to respect existing legislation in the efforts also to contribute to the management of this existing crisis. When acting to address such a crisis, measures cannot lead to disproportionate and unnecessary actions. And this is also vital that measures are not extended, as I said, after we go out and we pass from the state of emergency. Implementation of exceptional measures only for the duration of the crisis, restricting fundamental human rights, must only be seen as a temporary measure. Whatever the companies have to do in the situation, it must always be understood to be linked directly with an emergency procedure, and it must not become a status quo. The protection of data for now and the future. We should preserve all data on content removal during the COVID-19 pandemic, including information about takedowns that basically do not receive human intervention. And to conclude, I must again re-emphasize on the importance of transparency and accountability. And when we discuss the issue of artificial intelligence, and this is reflected very clearly also in our report, in our INL report on the DSA, the main principle when it comes to artificial intelligence is transparency and accountability. Basically, if we don't have a situation of transparency and accountability, we will end up with a situation where our users, where our consumers will lose confidence in the system. And definitely, this will have negative implications, negative impact on our future digital services.
Absolutely.
Digital services, which are so important.
Absolutely, Alex. You put actually a lot of meat on the table already in your first initial statement. So I actually think you touched upon a couple of really important things. And the first one where I would like to really touch upon with Werner is related to the cooperation, because the European Commission, Werner, has been quite vocal both on the impact that misinformation has and the fight of misinformation in that sense, but also on the cooperation side. I saw your AI and robotics versus COVID repository. So you put together a really interesting bunch of information for people to be able to get information and to propose things. So Werner, let us know what the Commission has been doing in this sense and what is your take on what Alex has just said.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think we have all gone through a very interesting test case, of course, because just before COVID broke loose, we came out with our digital strategy on AI, on data, and more globally on how we would want to shape Europe's digital future, including on the DSA, about which Alex spoke predominantly. And what we did at the time, I think, is still valid, if not more valid today. Because what we have seen during the crisis was indeed, as Alex also said, that a lot of things only worked because they were digital. So that was a good thing. But we never said that digital is a bad thing anyway. We went into this commission by saying that digitization alongside the Green Deal is one of the two big priorities of this commission, right? And then we came with our digital strategy, which again aims to make the most of technology. We're not anti-technology. We're just saying, we want technology to be used in Europe in a way that matches our values and rights and rules. And that's what we said on the DSA, that's what we said on data, and what we said on AI. So during the crisis, we experimented a lot and we saw what worked and what did not work so well. And indeed, also, as you rightly said, we were trying to use as much as we could AI to help us through this crisis. But that does not mean that the principles behind our strategy are not valid anymore. Quite on the contrary, because as Alex rightly said, it is all about trust at the end of the day. No digital solution will be successful in the future if it does not have the trust of people. You saw this on all sorts of discussion. Take the tracing apps discussion, for instance. Yeah, although this was really about decentralized systems and limited in time based on data minimization and what have you, and purely voluntary. Huge debates, of course, and a lack of trust in parts of the population. Do they really trust that data that they share with someone will only be used for the purposes they are, and however much reassurance you provide to them, you probably need to give the double and triple reassurance that this is happening. Or another debate that we just had 1 or 2 weeks ago about AI and law enforcement, when some private companies said they don't want to provide facial recognition technology to law enforcement because this may amplify, for instance, racial discrimination. I mean, all these debates just show how important it is to get the framework right. So we must maximize the benefits of technologies, and especially in health, and that's, I think, part of the topic of today. We have, of course, seen how much we could do even better than in the last 3 months had we had a fully fledged data strategy for health-related data. If we had a very powerful framework around trustworthy AI, we could probably do miracles, right? But we were all a bit improvising, and I think the lesson to be learned is in a year from now, I don't want to have to improvise anymore. I want to be able to provide a framework, or we as Europe, a framework that allows us to reap the benefits of the data economy, of creating a true health data space, for instance, with all the governance attached, right? All the reassurance needed to ensure privacy, legal clarity for all stakeholders as to what data can be shared with whom and how do we ensure cybersecurity around all of that. So in order to feed then AI solutions, which themselves, of course, need to meet our basic legal requirements so that we don't have, fundamental rights threatened or even our health if things go wrong. So I think very, very interesting lessons from these last 3 months.
Absolutely. Thank you, Werner. I really think that the 3 keywords here are on one side accountability, on another one is safety and credibility. So like this AI can really help in many things, and data science, technology can help. But of course, we need to be sure that what we are using is for our own advantage and not having side effects. So on this sense, Angeliki, you guys have done quite some work in this sense. I would like first to understand what were the success stories on the side of Huawei, and then on the second note, if you could respond on the credibility side for Werner and Alex on how we can make sure that AI is really something that people are not afraid of, but they see it as an asset, as an added value for it.
Thank you very much, Alessandro, for this introduction, and thanks also Alex Werner for this interesting intervention. First of all, I'm very happy to be among this distinguished panel, and thank you, Forti and Alessandro, for inviting me to share my thoughts and to debate about the role that technology has played in the fight against COVID-19. So we'll start by saying that technology and connectivity played an important role in several sectors of the economy, not only in healthcare, but also in education and also in other fields. But specifically, artificial intelligence was really on the forefront of the fight against the spread of the coronavirus. Talking actually about Huawei specifically, connectivity is what we're all about. That is why we spend annually almost 13 billion euros on research and development. That's why in 2019, we registered over 3,500 patents in Europe, more than any other company. And that's why we firmly believe that AI is a core technology that can have a key, let's say, and positive impact on the future. But concretely now, coming to your question, how technology helped us as a company, really to help also society and contribute to the fight against COVID-19. I would say first that, yes, we have partnered with Advanced Global Solution Agius Italy, which is an AI software provider company, but also with another one, Yitu Healthcare, where we used AI for diagnosis and screening solutions. So actually how this works, this technology, the solution helped us to reduce the diagnosis time to just a few seconds and also speed up the reporting processes. In fact, it's 30 times faster than when done by human beings. So it goes through hundreds of CT images and gives results in about tens of seconds. Usually we understand that in a way, technology facilitates the work of humans. So usually this solution will take 12 minutes only for a radiologist to check the images and probably another couple minutes to fill in the report. With AI, this time is reduced. It actually just take 10 seconds only for the diagnosis, another 30 seconds just for confirming the results. So we see that how important role technology plays in this regard. AI also can boost detection sensitivity to 98% compared to just 60 to 70% while using the conventional test kits. With the data collected via test, AI can further predict the progression of the pandemic, allowing more preparation also for the government and medical organizations to react on time. So another use case that we had, a solution that we developed within Huawei, is telemedicine. So with this solution, doctors were able actually to provide care remotely. What actually does is to connect doctors and patients, sometimes thousands of miles apart, over the web through HD audio and video. And like this, eliminating at the same time the need for face-to-face contact. Mm-hmm. But as I said at the beginning, none of this is possible without the most basic technology. And this is actually a robust, secure, fast, and widespread connectivity. I will be more than happy to elaborate even more during our discussion. Also, the points raised by Alex and also the representative of the Commission, and we will, I'm looking forward for exchanging more ideas with you all in the remaining time.
No, absolutely, absolutely. We try to have some initial statements so we can start the conversation, and then we float the various questions around. So I will give the floor to Kalina now, so she can present herself and tell us what MedTech Europe is doing, which is the Trade Association of Medical Technologies. And I would really like, Kalina, for you also to tell me, because I understood that really technology is able and capable of helping even doctors. And I've seen a myriad of great initiatives in Europe by doctors, by technology, by medical technologies that are able to put together this AI and help really the fight against COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much, Alessandro. Thank you for inviting MedTech Europe to this interesting conversation. MedTech Europe, for those who don't know us, is the trade association for the medical technology industry, which includes diagnostics, medical devices, and digital health. And our members are national, European, and multinational corporates, as well as national associations from almost all EU member states. So yes, indeed, COVID-19 has put unprecedented attention on the importance of digital healthcare in times of crisis. And artificial intelligence here has a more specific promise to offer. MedTech Europe supports greatly the new priority of the European Commission to advance artificial intelligence in Europe. And we do believe that there is an enormous potential for AI to make healthcare safer and more efficient, to improve healthcare access in like remote areas, for example, and to improve healthcare outcomes. And last but not least, of course, to empower patients and citizens. Now, in the context of the COVID crisis in particular, we have seen various examples of how artificial intelligence has helped, but from the perspective of medical technologies. I can give as an example the interpretation, what Angelinki mentioned as well, the interpretation of large amounts of lung scans, for example, which greatly improved diagnostic timelines. Furthermore, there has been a lot of contribution by AI in the management of COVID-19 through the optimization of flows and care pathways and helping manage the hospital processes. Now, having said that, we can see that an important progress has been made. And from here on, what is important is to build on it and take it even further. MedTech Europe has identified several areas of welcome policy actions, which we believe can help enable artificial intelligence in Europe. First of all, as it was mentioned already as well, AI depends greatly on the performance of AI depends greatly on the data inputted. Therefore, there is need for very high quality, well curated and interoperable data for it to function well. Secondly, we need to put more attention on the development of digital skills and continuing education of healthcare professionals and citizens alike. Thirdly, we need to encourage member states to exchange best practices in how they finance and reimburse digital health solutions, which includes artificial intelligence. And we have seen some very good examples from some member states during the crisis, where regulatory barriers were removed for digital health to be reimbursed. And last but definitely not least, we need to establish an enabling framework for artificial intelligence, which looks at and takes into account existing legislation and what is already working well, and also provides an appropriate governance model for data sharing, like, for example, through the realization of the European health data spaces. And just as a final remark, I would like to mention how the medical technology industry is looking at trustworthy AI. So, as some of you might know, our sector is regulated by the medical devices and in vitro diagnostic regulations. And in that context, artificial intelligence in MedTech falls under the characterization of software as a medical device, which means it is already a subject to very well developed and robust safety and performance requirements. And finally, we should bear in mind that the core goal of AI in MedTech is to save and improve people's lives, which means that ethical practices like transparency, accountability, non-discrimination are integrated throughout the whole development and integration of AI solutions. I'll stop here now, and I'm happy to follow up on any other questions.
Yeah, I see Angeliki wants to follow up. First, I would like to give the floor 1 second to Alex and Werner, because I would like to follow up on what Angeliki and Kalina said earlier. So first, Alex. So the idea is really that AI, and I'm very much interested in the prevention side. AI can really help not only the spreading of the coronavirus, but very much also on detecting and preventing future outbreaks of this virus or of future virus. So my point, though, is that in that sense, it can help predict, surveil, and then there is, of course, the information part. What I would be interested to understand from politics and policy, so from the Parliament and the Commission, is how can we ensure that people trust this technology, because it is all about that.
This is a very good question, Alessandro, because as also Werner has already stated, we have nothing against digital developments. We have nothing against artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is the future, but artificial intelligence has to work within an EU public policy, public values framework. So it's really important, and this is of utmost importance to the industry, and also with regards also to consumer confidence in these systems. Therefore, again, when it comes to inputting of data sets for AI, non-discriminatory, which must be non-discriminatory, which must be a transparent system. And I always believe when it comes to AI that we must look under the hood. And when I say that we must look under the hood, it's not a question of doing away or infringing trade secrets. I believe that trade secrets, innovation must be protected, especially when it's IP. But at the same time, to boost consumer confidence in the system and to have a reflection on the EU public values, there must be a higher level of transparency, a higher level of accountability. So this AI framework will be a more transparent one, and consumers and users will have more faith in the system, which basically is an underneath, is an element which is found in a lot of practices that we do online, in a lot of algorithms that are there and are used by intermediary players, that are used by online platforms, from intermediation and algorithms being used by Facebook, which shows clearly in the newsfeed from algorithms that are used sometimes not for the right reasons by online marketplaces, which may have also a huge impact when these online marketplaces are vertically integrated. So there are a lot of repercussions if there is no transparency, there is no accountability when it comes to artificial intelligence. But again, artificial intelligence is key and a key player when it comes to health and also the fight against coronavirus. But we must be sure that there is full respect to our fundamental rights.
Fantastic. Werner, do you want to comment, or I'll give the floor first to Angeliki? First, Werner. Okay.
Yeah, just to answer again your question of how to ensure that the trust, if you want. First of all, I think we have to see the whole ecosystem, because sometimes we're talking data, sometimes we're talking connectivity, then we're talking AI. I think it's the whole ecosystem that we need to function properly, right? Because it's all connected, as the word connectivity suggests. We need a whole infrastructure in place: connectivity, cloud, data sharing, AI capacities, computing power, and all the rest of it. So on the one hand, we are promoting all of this in Europe. We're investing in this. We promote investment in these technologies. We try to provide a legal framework that also provides certainty for everybody in the chain, if you want. But at the same time, of course, we need to make sure that the users, the citizens and so on, are adequately protected and informed. So it is always goes hand in hand, right? Building trust, building a framework that works, and then to invest in this. Now, in terms of framework for AI, we have clearly spelled out in the white paper what we would high-risk applications to do. So that comes back to the transparency accountability point made by Alex, right? So we had spelled out that we want those systems to be robust and safe, that the data used for training are appropriate, that there's appropriate record keeping and information about how all of this works, that individuals should be informed when they deal with an AI system, that there's human oversight. So these are some things for high-risk applications that absolutely need to be proven to be in place, otherwise people will not trust it. But also on the data side, I mean, since we're talking about, again, about health, we are working on the data spaces in general and then health data space in particular. But when it comes to data spaces, the first thing is that we need a governance framework that facilitates data sharing and provides reassurance at the same time, right? So we need those data spaces that will guarantee both data protection and also security and cyber security, if you want. And that in a way that people can trust. If you take, for instance, the Finnish example in the health space, they have done that in a way. They have created a one-stop shop principle, but it is clear that there's a public authority that handles requests for data used from the medical field, if you want. Yeah. So there is some reassurance that whenever business or researchers turn to the health sector for data, that this is being first checked and cleared, and then we can get on with it, right? And this is the importance of those governance measures in a way, that there is transparency, but also a clear legal framework that says who can use and share data for what purpose and how can we make sure that those data are protected. That needs to be done, and it needs to be communicated and understood by everybody in the chain.
Absolutely. Angeliki, off you go. I think the last point of Werner was exactly what we're all discussing about.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, Alessandro, and actually I fully agree with both Alex and Werner. I mean, it's essential to establish a clear accountability, liability, and redress mechanism to deal with potential harms resulting potentially from the use of AI applications and machine learning tools. Regarding the high-risk applications, AI risk applications, human oversight should be required, and a strict and strong liability framework will be needed in order to ensure that the burden of proof, for example, in the case of harm caused by AI systems or products, is not on the EU consumers' side, as really well stated by Alex, in those specific high-risk cases. And this is something that also will be interesting also perhaps Alex to explore also in his in the compromise amendments and the final report that he's preparing. Another key issue regarding AI is the need to put algorithms to good use, and in something that also Werner mentioned. So platforms like online marketplaces, social media, search engines deploy algorithms to protect most of the times, and we see that, their own commercial interests. So I believe that it's essential to apply them equally to protect consumers and also businesses, so in a way that prevent illegal listings, for example. At Huawei, we believe that it's crucial to monitor algorithms and to assess the associated risks, and at the same time to ensure high quality and unbiased actually data sets. Maybe a good solution to this will be also the establishment of a European agency on content management, and Alex is also one of his suggestions on that, because, for example, this agency could be tasked with regular auditing of the algorithms employed by content hosted platforms, and also perhaps it will be responsible for content moderation, but also for ensuring that the illegal content, but also disinformation about, in this case, COVID-19 is removed, and so on. So yeah, I mean, I fully agree with what has been mentioned before, and we have a long way ahead, but I'm confident that good cooperation between industry and policymakers can be done, and for the best results. Thank you.
I think this is an interesting proposal. I know Alex is thinking about that on having a European, from the institutions, a European body that will tackle this. I will slightly change the topic for a second, because we have a question from the Q&A, which I would like to ask Kalina, and also Alex on this. So everyone has been bombarded during this coronavirus time by information. We've been bombarded, and several companies, some of them are related to the DSA, that is the file that Alex is the rapporteur of, on information, misinformations on coronavirus, and also on all the technologies that can help the fight against coronavirus. So, you know, we hear about artificial intelligence, but I also believe that in the end, if I think of myself, if I go to the hospital to have a scan, I would assume a doctor is more precise than AI, which is not the truth, Kalina, if I understand correctly. Like artificial intelligence is not only faster, but it's really something that can work on that. How do we build the trust on it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Alessandro. To your last point, I would like to mention that we don't look at AI as a standalone thing. We look at it as we like to think about it as a human-centered AI, where humans and AI work together. And we believe that the best performance of AI is when it's combined with specific human expertise. And then your other question was how to, can you remind me?
Yeah, the idea is, I understand it's not a standalone, so that is already something interesting. The point would be, how can we teach, empower, and enhance digital literacy so that people feel comfortable? I mean, I put myself in the shoes of a citizen, or normal citizens, and I go to the hospital. I would like to make sure that what I'm using, which is something new, is really something that that is capable of curing me, or at least detecting things.
Yeah, well, I think it's this will be a long-term effort, which is a collaborative effort between policymakers, academia, governments, and from a medical technology perspective and healthcare perspective, we believe that it's very important to integrate digitalization and digital skills in the professional education of doctors, and also to make it a priority in the policy agenda, which will greatly increase trust in the expertise of healthcare professionals, and on the other side, which has to happen in parallel, is to also increase trust and skills of citizens, which has to happen through different country programs. And citizens need to understand and to maybe receive more positive messages around what is the potential ahead of data and using those technologies, rather than focusing always on the risks. So to increase their awareness for what is ahead and how digitalization can help them, and also to by increasing their skills, they would be better able to understand what is behind those algorithms that work in their benefits. So there will be less intimidation.
Alex and Werner, do you think a European body could maybe shed some light, having someone that really from the Commission tells us, okay, this we have checked and this is good?
So first of all, Alessandro, the question that you asked to Kalina is very spot on question, which reflects a lot of circumstances that we were facing online, especially on online marketplaces of products. I saw a lot of screenshots of advertised products on popular online marketplaces and less popular, more national, targeting national customers of, for example, medical products such as sanitizers, for example, with a label saying that this sanitizer completely protects you from COVID-19 and 100% kills COVID-19. And during a time of a pandemic, during a time of a medical emergency, during a time where our consumers are at the most vulnerable stage in their life, where they panic and they buy the first thing that they see, it's really important to have a digital system. We have online marketplaces which are free from misleading trading adverts and products which basically are advertised in a way which basically does not function in that way, especially when it comes to health and health protection. This is of utmost importance, and the use of AI, having a human-centric approach, is really important and can be of fundamental importance, together with a solid and a uniform notice and action mechanism to take down these products. It would be really beneficial to have a safer environment online. When it comes to the agency at EU level, this is the elephant in the room in our discussions on the DSA. There are different ideas being discussed as we speak at compromise level between different political groupings in the European Parliament. My perspective, and I don't want to comment because I think that we will prejudicate the discussion being undertaken, and it would not be fair at the shadows meeting level. But when it comes to the future DSA and when it comes to the revision of the e-commerce directive, I am a firm believer that one of the missing building blocks under the current e-commerce directive were three important words. Cooperation, so the cooperation mechanism must be there, enforcement mechanism, and sanctions. So it's useless to have all these beautiful provisions written on paper, but at the same time, they don't have the teeth to be enforced. So it's really important, and the cooperation element, the cooperation mechanism, the enforcement mechanism is really important to have a safer environment online. I'm not saying that self-regulation from the industries was not beneficial in the past 20 years since the e-commerce came into force and with the fast development of our digital services. But again, I believe that self-regulation has to be coupled up with a cooperation mechanism, with a sanctions mechanism, with an enforcement mechanism at EU level. Now, be it an agency, be it the Commission, being a supervisory authority at EU level, there is a lot of discussion on the actual form that this will take, but the cooperation element and the enforcement element at EU level and that member state level must be there to have a system which works.
Absolutely. I think we actually killed the elephant in the room with this. Werner, do you want to comment on this, I think?
Yes, first, just to echo how important enforcement is, because there is no point in having rules in place that nobody can enforce. So whatever the DSA will contain in obligations, for instance, on platform and others to act more responsibly, we also have to see how that can be properly enforced. I would not now jump to conclusions what that governance framework should look like, because we're really at the beginning of the consultation and impact assessment on this. But just to say that, of course, we are talking about many, many different types of content, if you want. So it is not just that you say, well, there's content moderation, let's have an agency that looks into content moderation, because there is anything from hate speech to unsafe products, to child pornography, to terrorist content, and so on and so forth. So there are very, very different types of content involved. And we already have, of course, existing structures as well. If you look into member states, it is not that at the moment nobody is responsible for this. Yeah, we have media regulators, we have data regulators, we have market surveillance authorities, we have consumer protection authorities, we have child sexual abuse hotlines, we have authorities that deal with terrorism and so on. So I think the starting point is to see to what extent the existing structures work or do not work. If they don't work, how can we improve that? And I agree totally with Alex that cooperation is key, for instance. Cooperation between different types of agencies or authorities, but also between home and host state, because we're talking about the single market here. And let's assume now we have a rule in place that says a platform needs to have measures ABC in place. Then the home state authority under the country of origin principle would of course be the first in line to enforce systems compliance, if you want. Yeah, and then we come to the sanctions part and the enforceability of that. But then a lot of the activities of a platform unfold in another member state, right? So one social media company is established in Ireland, but in France, French laws are being impinged, right? So how can we make sure that French authorities can play the role that they are supposed to play, that the host state plays their role, that there's coordination between the two around the commission if possible. So it's a very complicated question, and I think at the end of the process we will see to what extent there's a delta in terms of enforcement that even an improved system does not solve, right? So, but the first instance would of course always to start by what have we got already? Can we make that work even better? Can we connect the dots? Can we cooperate better? And then we will see at the end of the process whether more needs to be done.
No, I fully agree, and also I think that the added bit in this is that in times of crisis and during a time of a pandemic, this is the most relevant discussion, because people are really looking for the right information and they cannot base themselves on fake informations that they found on the sanitizer that kills 100% of the COVID-19. So we have the last 5 minutes because Werner has to go. Angeliki.
Yes, Alessandro, I just wanted to also intervene on what Kalina very rightly said about the importance of digital skills. I mean, we're talking about connectivity, we're talking about technology, but we should also not forget accessibility. So people really need to have the right skills in order to deploy and to work on this technology. We also need to talk about ethical skills indeed, because in the future, we will all have a situation that, okay, humans collaborate with machines, but maybe also machines among them will need to cooperate. So we need really to set up an ethical framework to define what are the skills needed, not only the hard skills that will in a way help people to access and deploy the technology, but also more, let's say, ethical skills on this. Green skills are also very important that we should take into consideration. And as Huawei, we really give a lot of emphasis on this aspect. We recently also joined the Digital Skills and Job Coalition of the European Commission, where we actually did several pledges to help not only individuals having access to digital skills, but also to SMEs. It is also the cornerstone of our economy. And we should really supporting them because they don't have, let's say, the right resources and to upskill or reskill. And then, yeah, a couple of comments also I could also make on the from some let's say several recommendations for policymakers that could take into account, which in general I believe that we need investment and uptake into AI across different sectors of the economy, not only in healthcare but also in education and other sectors, as I mentioned. We need to really prepare for a modern human collaborative workplace with training for new job and skills. At the same time, we should really ensure a broad stakeholder dialogue between all parties, both private and public sector, to formulate the ethical framework for AI deployment. And at the end, EU should strengthen its global cooperation to ensure that Europe benefits from trusted AI developed overseas, and at the same time should encourage also the private sector to have a role in technology, in research and development and standards formulation, and foster the public-private partnerships so that the AI governance principles are there and ready for action. Just a small comment based on what has been.
Thank you, Angeliki, also for the some insights and inputs for policymakers. 1 minute for Werner. What is the request from policymakers to the industry then? Like the counter argument.
Well, 1 minute is not enough for that, but one thing is clear, and I think our discussion has shown the many trade-offs that are being considered here and have to be considered, right? So we need to strike so many balances in different directions that in order to do that for the parliament, for us to make reasonable proposals and for the parliament to make reasonable amendments, I think we need to see the full picture, right? We have launched all these consultations on AI. It's already done. Data is still coming in. The DSA is just out for consultation. And we, of course, receiving lots and lots of feedback and information, but that's exactly what we need. We need to know what is at stake. We need to be sure that we don't have a black spot somewhere, that we have not considered some side effects. You know, if we take a reasonable measure here, what could that mean, however, for someone else? We need to have this full picture. And for that, I can only hope that everybody who has a stake will come forward and help us in getting it right.
1 minute. That was that was fantastic. Okay, 1 minute for Kalina, and then Alex for the closing. Kalina, same question to you. What could policymakers do to make this sector develop in the right way, according to you?
Yeah, thank you, Alessandro. Well, I would like to build on what Werner mentioned. I think it's very important for industry and policymakers to collaborate here, because it's such a new policy development topic, and I think that one thing that is very important is to indeed take into account what already exists, what are the well-working and existing regulations at sectoral level, and the medical technology industry is keen to provide feedback. We have provided responses to the recent consultations and will keep being very active stakeholder in this dialogue. So
fantastic, thank you, Kalina. Alex, I take a lot of pride in always being able to finish within the time that was allocated. So we made it today as well. Final comments.
First of all, I would like, again, before concluding, to thank again EU40 for this opportunity, for this open discussion. It's really important because you always manage to make a good discussion between stakeholders and institutions, and that's really important. From my end, I think that we need to find a balanced approach, an approach, again, that is built on EU public values, which will ultimately give a better protection for our consumers. It will create also a more contestable market, digital market, and therefore giving our SMEs, our innovators, and we have a lot of good innovators when it comes to AI, a fair chance to compete with their products in the market. So I think that we have a big challenge ahead. The Commission was very proactive also with its consultation, and that's really important to reach out as much as possible. This is something that I have also done as rapporteur on this dossier, an important dossier, reaching out to everyone. There are different levels when it comes to digital services of intermediation. As you said, there is a large, as Werner said, there is a large variety of content that is being monitored, that is being regulated, from illegal to harmful content. So there are a lot of questions to be answered, but I need that ultimately by end of this year, both the Parliament and also the Commission will come up with a beefed up proposal with a balanced approach to create a safer environment online, and also to set an important precedent for the rest of the world, because the DSA has to be also an example of what happened with the GDPR, also to create and to leave an effect worldwide also. So we have a great opportunity ahead to achieve this together.
Absolutely. So I think this is only the beginning. So we will probably hear more on this. I would like to thank all the panelists very much. I also would like to thank Daniela and Eloise, my colleagues that helped me build this, and all the people that followed us. I wish you all a great day. Thank you very much, and have a...
Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandro. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Alessandro and you 40.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.